Hi there. Okay, just fitting some crash bars to the Moto Morini X Cape. They're the standard issue factory bars, 205 quid, I think they were, 210. Not too fiddly to fit, no fitting instructions. So if anybody's got a set and wondering what to do, pretty straightforward. They obviously designed the bike to have crash guards because there's a little triangle bit of the frame there which has got three screw holes to take that top mount. The bottom mount has then got just a bigger Allen bolt that goes through into the frame. So obviously that was pre-prepared, ready to take that. And it all lines up pretty well, to be honest. There was paint on the bolt, paint inside the thread that just took a little bit of a screw to get started. But after that, it was all right. These clamps are a little bit fiddly. So they're sort of like I don't know what you call it, a horseshoe clamp that just got a lip there that goes through there, and then they've got these plastic inserts to stop it rubbing on the frame. That was a little bit fiddly to get that round. But the lower crash bars actually are pretty good. They feel pretty sturdy. And you can also just fit that. Just leave that. This is a separate section. This is the upper crash bar. I'm not so sure about this. The fit in there is okay. I've lost or there wasn't one, a spacer, so that's a little bit wobbly there. And then it just goes up and is mounted just below there on there. And then this slots together here with two of the flimsiest bolts for a crash bar. So I'm not sure about that upper crash bar. A, it sort of ruins the look of the bike, I think, a little bit. And B, if anybody's got a Tiger 900 or a Africa Twin with the upper crash bars, you probably know that if you crash wrong, the crash bars push into the tank or into the plastics and then cause actual damage themselves. So in some crashes, you'd be better off without that upper crash bar because A, it's going to fall on the handlebar ends, and B, I think that's quite a nice protrusion, so that should protect the plastics and things like that. So I might even just take that upper crash bar off. It's a shame you can't buy it separately, but you have to buy it as a complete unit. I don't know what they are, 5 kilos, 6 kilos, so it's added a bit of weight, but it's already a heavy bike, 240 kilos or so. So I've got to be honest, you don't notice that extra 5 because it's already quite a weighty bike. I did drop the bike when I was out in Wales last weekend guiding a trip. It just caught me out. I went to push backwards while I was marking a junction, and the bike just toppled over while I was sat on it against a curb, and thankfully I got away with very, very small nicks just here and there, but I think it shows that is quite an exposed panel. So it's always hard to say with crash protection whether it actually prevents damage or causes damage. I certainly get the feeling that these lower ones will prevent damage. Even that looks to protect your gear lever if you drop it. So that's quite good, and they feel very sturdy. But otherwise, people are saying how you're getting on with the bike. 1,500 miles in now. I did an 800-mile trip up to Wales. Got a group of 15 riders. They were on fast bikes, faster bikes, more powerful bikes. And I've got to be honest, the Moto Morini, it impressed me. It's not a show bike. It's not a showpiece bike. It doesn't blow your brains out or blow your mind because it's simply got 60 brake horsepower and 240 kilos. Those two figures translate into the real world as to a bike that it is pretty weighty. It feels it when you sit on it. It feels like you're on a full-size bike, but it's only got the power of sort of a mid-size bike. And you either accept that or you don't. You look for something more powerful. If you ride it right, you keep it revving and you keep it on song. It's a strong engine. It's not a charismatic engine. The engine's not going to really engage you too much. It just does a functional job. The engine's a replica or a licensed production of the Kawasaki Versys 650 engine, which itself was never the most exciting. Really, what Morini has done is take that engine, a very similar chassis. I actually had a Versys 650 part next to it yesterday. And everything about the Versys 650 chassis is pretty much identical. Some of the castings are different for the swing arm, etc., but the geometry and everything else is same. So what you've effectively got is a Versys 650 that looks a bit more engaging, looks a bit more exciting, and with a 19-inch front wheel, 17-inch rear, spoke wheels, tubeless, which I like. I think for me, what I really like about the Morini is the way it handles. They've set it up very nicely. It's not got a lot of suspension travel. It's Marzocchi forks, which are fully adjustable, which is a good feature on a 7.5 gram bike, something you don't get on the Tiger 900s, etc. So you've got full adjustability, rebound and compression damping. You've also got a little bit of adjustability here. You can see there's holes there fore and aft. So so you can mount your bars either further back or further forward. But what I really like about the bike is the way it handles. It's just a really nice handling bike. It stays very neutral and flat in the corners. You've got a lot of adjustability, but also feel, grip and stability. And it makes for a very sharp handling bike that's sharp's not really the right word. It's stable but accurate and engaging. And I found you could carry a lot of good cornering speed, and it was that cornering speed that makes up for that dollop of power that you've not got coming out the corners. Comfort was pretty good. It needs a cover on it of some sort. It just got a little bit sweaty. It was a hot day, so it's always hard to know how it would translate into a normal temperature day for England, but it was about 30 degrees up around Wales, the rare heat wave of the UK. So I would need a cool cover or a lambswool seat cover just to make that more comfortable. You're also sat in a bit of a dip, so if you don't fit that dip, you're going to have to do something about the seat, but then the seat's already quite tall at 845mm and quite a wide straddle, which makes it feel taller than it is. So depending on your leg length, you're not going to be able to put any more height in that seat. Just with the heat of the day, I found there's a lot of engine heat coming from the bike, which, you know, it was a rare day to be over 30s in the UK, but if anybody's watching this in Italy or Israel or wherever you're going to buy one of these things that's hotter, Australia, I did think it was a bit of an issue on the motorway. It did sort of get that inside right leg and inside left leg with a bit of heat. So whether that will calm down with a bit more wear on the miles, a bit more miles on the engine, I'm not entirely sure. I mean, bikes are obviously fitted with these huge catalytic converters and things which pump out a lot of heat. I mean, it's no worse than, say, you know, a KTM 1190, which is probably the benchmark for engine heat. It's no worse than that. It's no worse than the Himalayan when I went across America, across Texas. That pumped out a lot of heat as well. I think it's these Euro 5 emission regulations which just seem to trap or pump out heat. One thing I did self-service it at 600 miles. Pretty easy job. The dealer sent me an oil filter, which is pretty exposed down there. That was just came off, a bit stubborn, so I had to get the screwdriver through it and twist it off. And then it just takes 2.2 litres of a 1040 weight semi-synthetic, so an off-the-shelf, easy to find brand of oil, nothing too fancy. And that was an easy service. I just did a nut and bolt check, just make sure everything was all right. So, yeah, it was a self-service job at 600 miles. I'm not entirely sure what the next service interval is, and I think that's probably where Morini are just lacking a little bit at the minute. There's no clarity on servicing, or I don't have an owner's book or anything like that. So that paperwork back end that maybe you'd start to expect with a more premium imaged bike is just not there at the minute. Same with the fitting instructions on the engine guards. You know, you'd like fitting instructions. I think it's polite to send somebody some fitting instructions with a £200 product that you've just bought. The only little niggle I found while servicing, just adjusting the chain, it's an Allen bolt to loosen off that rear axle, which I don't know about anybody else, but I have a track record in rounding off Allen bolts, and it does make me a little bit nervous, especially it was incredibly tight from the factory. So I had a good swing on that to get it loose, and any minute now I expected to round it off. I would like a chunky nut on that, like any other bike. I don't know why it's like that. Maybe it's a thing that I'm not aware of. But yeah, tyres, the Pirelli STR rallies. I find these are a great tyre, actually, a really suitable tyre for this type of bike. They look like an off-road tyre, but really they perform like a road tyre. I won't have a lot of faith off-road on the bike because they've got no strip, you know, block tread. It's a continuous band almost. So I think it gives road levels of grip and cornering precision, and I think that's probably what helps it ride the corners so well. Off-road, I have tried the bike off-road local to us, and then on the Welsh trip we camped up at Sweet Lamb, which is an off-road centre with a 2-mile access road on gravel, and I rode the bike there. It's got a good standing position for off-road riding, but you know, ultimately you feel the weight of a heavy bike for off-road riding, and weight doesn't inherently lend itself to off-roading unless the weight sits low down, which it does on, say, a GS12. On this, it sits a little bit high, and so you've got that slight intimidation of it washing out under you, especially on gravel. And equally, the suspension travel isn't such that it would cope well with real rough or even moderate off-road. So I think we've got to see this as, well, they've said it themselves, actually. Morini have been quite honest in the branding, adventuring. So it's touring with a bit of adventure. Adventuring doesn't necessarily mean off-road, it just means going somewhere with a bit of excitement. So I think this bike ticks that box nicely. Yes, there's going to be people who want a bit more power. I think the trade-off there is the price. you know, it is what it is. It's £7,500. It's got good spec with the tire pressure sensors, and you know, I like the dash is pretty funky, and it looks a funky looking. I haven't got the key, sorry. It's a funky looking bike. So you've got to weigh up what do you want. You know, do you want to spend a bit more money? You get you an Aprilia Touareg, which there was an Aprilia Touareg on the Welsh trip, and you could see that, you know, there was a lot more ground up design on that bike to make it light, to make it dual sport, to make it a perfect bike for the around the world traveller. This ultimately, the Morini is based on a WK touring bike, a WK 650, same engine and everything. I think it's the same company in the background. So ultimately, it's a touring chassis, just propped up a little bit with longer travel suspension and a bigger front wheel. So, you know, we're not starting from a ground up bike, and I think that's why it probably disappoints a few people who've looked at it, because they go, "Wow, Dakar looking bike," and then you get on it and it's you know, it's a road bike. It's a road bike with comfortable adventure styling and riding position. Screen's pretty good. The only thing there is a really annoying chatter from this. It comes loose and it just vibrates, buzzing at you all the time. It needs a little fix. Colin down at Thor Motorcycles in Bodmin has got a fix. He said come in for that, so we'll do that. But motorway riding, comfortable on the motorway, filtering no problem, cornering no problem, keeping ahead of a fast-moving pack no problem. Has it got a real grunt out the corners? No. Do you ride around that? Yes. Ultimately, do you like the look of it? And I think ultimately, yes, I do. You know, not everyone likes the look of it, but I personally really like the look of it. I just like the styling, the colours, and you know, I'm happy with the purchasing decision. In some ways, the Guzzi V85, which I traded it for, had a lot more charismatic engine, but I never really got on with the handling so much on that bike, and I found the shaft drive on that was a bit sloppy, not quite as precise. So. If you could merge the two bikes, give the Moto Guzzi the handling of the Morini, and keep that engine, maybe you'd be on to a winner. But as it is, this is a good alternative to Versys 650, to Tiger 660, to V-Strom 660. And for those who don't want the off-road potential of a Tenere 700, you know, it would tick that box as well. Not a lot of dealers yet. They could do with more dealers. They could do with a bit more press coverage. They could do with a bit more support. It's going to take a lot to get this bike into the mindset of riders who most riders are inherently risk averse. So it's tricky for a bike like this. Benelli did it with Price on the TRK 502. You know, a really good bike built in China for the grand less than the Honda 500X. The Morini, whether it's pitched a little too high in the price to make, because price is what would sell this really, I suppose, you know, ultimately, and whether they've over-egged it just a touch, I don't know. The market will decide, but I hope it does well, because it's a nice riding bike and people need to give it a go if they're interested. This bike, you can ride it down here at Dorothy's Speed Shop. It is one of the bikes I've got for people to ride, so if you want to come down, I do charge. I'm not a dealer, so you have to pay me. But if you want to come down and ride it back to back with some other bikes, Himalayans and stuff, give us a shout. All right, take it easy. Bye.